KOIN 6 News, your local election headquarters, and just in the first results for this year's primary elections.
And of course, tonight, there are some major races being decided tonight, but one has really dominated the headlines for quite some time. Joining us now with the first look is our KOIN 6 political director, Ken Boddie. Hey, Ken.
Yeah, this is the race for Multnomah County District Attorney, where Nathan Vasquez looking to unseat his boss, DA Mike Schmidt. The results now, the initial ballots are that Nathan Vasquez is up 58% to 42% at this point. 82,000 votes have been counted so far. We're talking about Nathan Vasquez with a 17-point lead early. Of course, we have a lot more numbers to look at before this race is over. About 48,000 votes for Nathan Vasquez at this point, 34,000 for DA Mike Schmidt. We'll continue to follow these numbers throughout the evening.
All right, Ken, we'll be checking back with you. Now, let's have a look at some of the federal races with two major congressional battles. First, the Democratic primary in District 3, looking to fill Earl Blumenauer's seat, who's retiring. Whoever wins tonight on the Democratic side will most likely be the congressperson from this district. It's so heavily Democratic. And you can see Maxine Dexter with the early vote coming in with a very comfortable lead over all her challengers, including Sushila Jayapal. Now to District 5 right now. And this is a commanding lead from Janelle Bynum over Jamie McLeod Skinner in the Democratic battle to see who will take on Lori Chavez-DeRemer in November. But that's a significant lead with the early vote coming in.
All right, let's take a look at District 6 right now. And you can see that Andrea Salinas, the incumbent right there, does have a big, sizable lead by more than 14,000 votes there. Again, this is for District 6. And for District 6 Republicans here, we do have Mike Erickson, who is running again tonight, and he does have a sizable lead over David Russ tonight. Okay, and now for a look at the statewide results tonight. Let's bring in our Todd Unger with the latest on that.
Yeah, that's right, Liz, Jeff. We have three big spots that will be decided this fall, all holding primaries today for state government offices. We'll start with the race for Secretary of State on the Democratic side. You can see right there Tobias Reed with a commanding lead, 72% of the vote so far over James Manning, who is a former state senator and U.S. Army veteran. On the Republican side, Beaverton real estate broker Brent Barker right there coming in with only 21% of the vote. So far, the leader in that, State Senator Dennis Linthicum, Salem business analyst Tim McLeod pulling up the rear there. Now to Attorney General on the Democratic side. We've got Dan Rayfield, a commanding lead, more than 107,000 votes, 11% of the projected total in that race already being counted. On the Republican side right here, you have Will Lathrop right there, 66% of the vote, but still pretty early in that race. You'll notice only 3% of the total in so far. Michael Cross coming in with about 34%. On the Democratic side, for treasurer right now, Elizabeth Steiner, a commanding lead, more than 47,000 votes. She's got about 78% of the tally in that race so far. The winner of that race will face Brian Boquist, who ran unopposed on the Republican side. He's another one of the lawmakers disqualified from re-election for their participation in the Salem walkouts. He was also involved in extensive legal battles over comments he made during the 2019 walkouts. Jeff, Liz, will continue tracking those numbers all night long.
Okay, so those are early results coming in. Our coverage will continue right now, live streaming on KOIN.com and YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll also have updates tonight at 10 over on Portland CW and tonight at 11 right here on KOIN 6. Again, join us next on YouTube or KOIN.com. We'll see you there.
Our special election coverage continues now right here on KOIN.com.
All right, let's start with a little bit more on this high-profile district attorney race. We want to give you another look at the latest results here to see if anything has changed at this point. We are seeing that Nathan Vasquez does have this early lead right now by about 13,000 votes over Mike Schmidt. Of course, he's hoping to take Schmidt's position right there.
Yeah, we're joined by Brandon Thompson live at the election party of challenger Nathan Vasquez. What's the feeling right there with the early returns coming in, Brandon?
And there was a cry of excitement from the campaign party here in downtown Portland when the first results were shown on the screen, showing that there is a 13,000 vote lead for District Attorney candidate Nathan Vasquez. This is his campaign party alongside Boddie and Jesse Burke, who are running for separate county commissioner seats, but the party is about Nathan Vasquez tonight, and the crowd excited for that early lead. Vasquez has been painting himself as the experienced prosecutor inside the courtroom in this race, as opposed to incumbent District Attorney Mike Schmidt's policy-oriented experience before he became the Multnomah County District Attorney. And just to give you an idea of who is here and the people that support Nathan Vasquez, we've been taking a look throughout the room tonight. Renee Gonzalez, the Portland City Commissioner, he introduced Vasquez today. There's also the Mayor Wheeler's Senior Policy Advisor, Skylar Brockler-Knapp, is here. Sharon Myron's staff, the Commissioner for District 1, who was term limited at the end of this year. I've seen her staff here as well today. Now, we've also seen the leader of both of the Portland Police Association and the Portland Fire and Rescue Union here. The public safety backing is something that Vasquez ran on during this campaign, hoping to change the tide, he says, in Multnomah County, for a county that has experienced rising car theft, rising overdose rates, and just livability crimes that Vasquez hopes to win voters over with his campaign. He actually spoke to the crowd here about 25, 30 minutes ago before the results announced, saying this has been a campaign about hope. Take a listen.
That all of us are here because we see and we know there is a path forward, and it is a path forward to where we all enjoy the safety that we want and desperately need. It's a path forward where victory.
A reminder of some of the accomplishments that Vasquez had during his time in the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, where he was for 25 years. He was part of a violent crimes prosecution team, as well as the neighborhood unit, which worked on community engagement during his time, and also the strategic prosecution unit, which worked on diversion programs to help reduce recidivism among people who are stuck in the cycle of the criminal justice system. So we are here monitoring this campaign party and the reaction if these results hold. We do expect to hear from Vasquez about his reaction to the results so far, so we will of course bring that to you as soon as we hear from Nathan Vasquez. He is trying to capitalize on the momentum of the West Coast. In Seattle, a more conservative city attorney was elected in 2021, and then 2022 in San Francisco, a progressive-minded, reform-oriented district attorney there was recalled, and that is the momentum that Vasquez is hoping to capitalize on to become Multnomah County's next district attorney. Those early results are promising, and we'll be watching them throughout the night. Jeff and Elizabeth, back to you.
All right, Brandon, thank you.
Let's now get to the challenger in this, the Schmidt campaign. What's their reaction as these early returns come in? Lisa Balick standing by with the Mike Schmidt campaign.
Yeah, Jeff, there are about 125 people here. Among the notables, Jessica Vega-Peterson, the county chair, is here. Michelle DePass, one of the Portland School Board members. Now, Mike Schmidt did come by maybe about a half hour ago, talking to folks casually, saying hello, saying he's glad that today is finally here. And he said I asked him what kind of a day it was. He said it was a pretty chill day. He said he was with his family, took the day off from work. He was also, as we saw earlier today, out campaigning, and we had caught up with him while he was out campaigning, doing door knocking and all. Now, we are expected to hear from him at about 8:15 tonight, in just a little while. And my understanding is that he's just going to come out, cheer on and thank his supporters here, and say, hey, we'll be back a little bit later once we know what's happening. But so far, there has not been any kind of big reaction as people have been watching the numbers come in, the first dump of numbers. Nobody cheering, nobody feeling too sad about what's happening, just basically waiting to see what happens as the night goes on. I have to tell you, we saw a tremendous number of people last minute dropping off ballots at ballot boxes this afternoon and early this evening. Don't forget all the ballots that are in the mail, at least as long as they're postmarked by midnight, those ballots will count as well. But in this race, it will come down to just these two challengers, both in the district attorney's office currently, and if one gets that 51%, that's the magic percent, then they get the job, although they wouldn't take the job, obviously, until next January. We'll be waiting to see what happens as the night goes on. So far, pretty upbeat crowd, waiting to see how it goes. Back to you.
All right. Lisa Balick with the Mike Schmidt campaign is they hopefully wait for more of those ballots to come in. Once again, a reminder, these are just early returns from Multnomah County.
Yeah, and there's a lot to all these races that we're watching tonight. We want to go in depth and analyze the situations for you. So we want to bring things over to our Boddie now. Ken.
Well, I'm joined here by former state senator and political analyst Rick Metzger. And what do you make of these early numbers in the Multnomah County DA's race?
Well, this is what we talked about last week. It's really important that Vasquez, if he's going to win, that he gets those early votes. So those were those seniors we talked about who always vote early, that were doing that head and the heart discussion, and their head was telling them they wanted to be tougher. And so Vasquez right now, and there's still a lot of votes to come in Multnomah County.
Absolutely. These are the first tallies, yeah.
But he needed to have a double-digit lead at the head of this night, because I think later votes, the ones that are cast today, may have a tendency to skew more for Schmidt. So, but having a double-digit lead off the gate is really the margin that he needs. So I think he's playing the game right now as he expected and as he hoped.
Vasquez made a lot of headway by criticizing Schmidt's performance in the DA's office. What influence does that have? Just the climate of Portland and the Portland metro area in general have on the outcome of this race?
I think there's a combination of those things that has been erupting ever since DA Schmidt took over, which isn't his fault, but right in the start of COVID and all the riots that happened as a result of that. And what has happened with Portland and the continuous reading of the vacancy rate in Portland, the crime, seeing things on the national stage about Portland needing to pull out of this, really played into Vasquez saying, okay, let's win our city back. And I think that's resonating with voters.
When D.A. Schmidt came in, there was a lot of talk about him being a reformer. He calls himself a progressive and a reformer. Things kind of went wrong with Measure 110, didn't work out the way that he thought it would, but he did reverse position on that towards the end and actually lobbied the legislature to change it. So have you noticed a change in his strategy in terms of how he approaches public safety?
Absolutely. If you watch the legislature this last session, he was standing by Measure 110 all the way until he saw the parade was already passing in the street. And then he joined in and supported at the very last moment the change by the legislature to recriminalize certain uses of drugs in the state of Oregon. And if you notice with the Portland state riots, he was positioning himself. He was at every press conference with the police talking about accountability. He was really trying to do a 30-day remake of his image with the public, but it may be just a little too late.
One of the other things that D.A. Schmidt also did was he was part of a number of task forces to target retail theft and car theft. Do you think that resonated with voters at all?
Well, I think those are very important issues. In fact, it's interesting to see that there's been progress the last 6 months in breaking up within Multnomah County and assistance with the city of Portland on some of these large car theft rings. But again, this has been a 2 or 3 year evolution in the minds of people in Multnomah County about the state of the city of Portland and Multnomah County in general. And that's just a lot to shake with just 2 or 3 wins, say, in the last 6 or 9 months, when this has been embedded in their hearts for so long.
One of the other things that Vasquez pointed out was that he is Multnomah County's lead prosecutor. He is the senior deputy district attorney. So he works directly with D.A. Schmidt on a daily basis. One of the things he pointed out is that his main experience has been that of a prosecutor. So that seems to have resonated with voters as well, at least up to this point from these early returns.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I will say D.A. Schmidt has a very good point. You're managing an office of a couple of hundred individuals.
300 DAs.
Yeah, or 300, thank you. So there is managerial expertise that is needed there. You can't just be a great prosecutor. So while that message has resonated with voters, if Vasquez goes on and wins this race, he also has to be able to take responsibility for managing a large cadre of individuals in order to make the agenda move forward.
Yeah, this is going to be a matter of who was able to get their voters out, because these are the early returns, of course, that we're seeing now. Nathan Vasquez has a 17-point lead at this point, but you expect that that margin will close as more of these ballots come in.
Multnomah County has a history of a third of their voters voting on the last day. And those votes are not reflected here. They will be counted later. They're the ones that we're going to get at 11 o'clock at midnight, 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. And if you remember the most recent, my good friend Mark Hass was declared the winner of the Secretary of State race over Shamia Fagan. Then those late votes came in. It was those young progressives that turned that around. And so, as I mentioned, Vasquez needed a double-digit lead because I think that will shrink during the evening. But he's got a good leg up right now. And I think you have to point for him as the one who's most likely to prevail. But I do believe the race is going to tighten as the evening moves on.
Rick Metzger will be talking with you much more during the course of this evening about some other races, including those congressional races, which I know you're following very closely. Jeff and Liz, back to you.
Okay, Ken and Rick, great analysis. Let's move on to some of the federal races, including the fight in District 5 as new numbers continue to come in, Liz.
And let's bring up those latest numbers right here. And Janelle Bynum still with a sizable lead over Jamie McLeod Skinner. Again, this is for the Democratic Party for Congress for District 5 here. We also want to check in with our Elise Haas. She is in Clackamas with the Bynum campaign now. And of course, we want to keep in mind, Elise, the winner of this race will still have to take on Republican incumbent Lori Chavez-DeRemer. Elise, what's the latest there?
There's, of course, lots of cheering here at Janelle Bynum's party. Once those initial numbers came in, showing that she had such a strong lead, we saw people making toasts and celebrating. But like you said, there's still, of course, still more race to be had. But right now we're out here celebrating, or we're not celebrating, but with the folks who are celebrating her lead at this point out at the cider company in Clackamas, where Bynum is from. And as you know, she is a 4-term Oregon state representative, and she says that her track record in Oregon really makes her the best choice. She says that her top issues will be voting rights, abortion rights, and also lowering prescription drug costs. At this point, we are very much patiently waiting for her to come out and make some comments and a speech to all of her supporters. Oh, here she is. Here she is. Take her on. Been here for the past hour. I can see her face, you can't, but she seems very overwhelmed and very, very emotional as everyone is cheering her on in this race. So they're now cheering her name, saying Bynum, Bynum, Bynum. And as you can say, I'm gonna move the microphone up to her so that way we can hear what she has to say.
All right, Elise, thank you for the latest there. And of course, we'll hear the remarks from Janelle Bynum in just a bit.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Believe it or not, I'm kind of shy. So, good evening, everyone. I'm fresh off of the airplane from seeing my daughter graduate and walk across the stage this weekend. And I watched her Saturday night deliver remarks. Just thanking her family and thanking her parents for leading her in a direction that is going to chart a new way of life for our family, and it just reminded me of why I do this work. And I'll say this in my remarks in just a moment, but I do this work as a love letter to my children and to Oregon's children. And I truly believe when you bridge the gap between opportunity and talent, then America is a much better place. There's so many young, talented, beautiful children out there who just need a shot. And I think, Washington is failing us in delivering, food. Today we're talking about school lunches for every child in America. We're talking about reproductive health access. We're talking about all of these things that will make America a much richer and much more alive place for every American. And so I'm really excited at this opportunity. So I'll begin my formal remarks now. Good evening, everyone. It is with great pride that I introduce myself as now state representative, but now nominee, Democratic nominee for Oregon's 5th Congressional District. I wanted to thank my family, Mark. He's probably just finished dropping off his ballot. And thank him. Seriously, it was 6-something when I was helping him fill it out. I wanted to thank him for his steadfast support and for our 4 wonderful children, 2 of whom are now voters. Christine, Ellis, Caroline, and Asa, they are my joy. As I said before, my work is a love letter to them. It is the reason that I get up every day for them, their friends, their colleagues on their jobs and at the football team at University of Oregon. I do this work for them. I wanted to also thank everyone here today and everyone who showed up to get us one step closer to the future that we want for this great state. My parents, James and Clara, always taught me the values of hard work, determination, and public service. How we must stand up for others because it is the right thing to do and not because it serves your individual politics. I often share the story about how my mom says if our generation doesn't stand up, then we stand to lose everything her generation fought for, whether that's voting rights, whether that's reproductive rights, whether that's the right to have food and housing at a fair and reasonable cost. She was right. And in 2016, I stepped up and put my name in. I was scared and terrified, but over the last 8 years, I've built a solid foundation. I know who I am. I know the people that I love. I know the state that I represent, and I know that I can do it better than anyone else on the ballot. As your representative in Salem, in the past, I've looked at every bill with the lens of, will it make Oregon better and create opportunities for our children, both our sons and our daughters? Will it help working families, and will it advance civil rights? And I know better than anybody else, unfortunately, Lori Chavez-DeRemer hasn't been thinking that way in Congress. And I believe she makes her decisions with a very different set of criteria. Will it help me? Will it help my far-right MAGA Republican donors? She voted in D.C. to restrict access to reproductive rights, and then wasn't so truthful about her record back home in Oregon. And she's proudly endorsed Donald Trump while gutting funding for the critical services Oregonians rely on. She's basked in the limelight of her MAGA friends in D.C. and has barely even visited the district. Sorry, I want to be respectful of the microphones here. But I believe that our families deserve better, and our communities deserve better, and our country deserves better. And so that's why I'm proud to stand before you as the Democratic nominee for Oregon's 5th. So I want to be brief, but I started off by telling you all that this weekend we had the opportunity to watch 505 young black women at Spelman College walk across the stage, and they were filled with so much promise. And I looked at my daughter, who wants to become a dentist, and I've been following her journey with close admiration and love, but also a little bit of trepidation, because as she was trying to apply to dental school and trying to figure out where she was going to go, you know, she ran into $3,000 studio apartments in Boston. You know, she ran into how much money does it take to take the entrance exam? It's like $500. How many times am I going to have to take that? How much am I going to come out with student debt? And all of these things are issues that are facing our young people. And it is for us as the adults who love them to make sure that there is a brighter future for them, that they can make sure that they have their access to their own health decisions. That was a big deal for her. She and her friend were talking about where they were going to go for medical school or dental school, and they were very clear. I'm going to go somewhere where my rights are protected. So we know that as Democrats, we protect the right of people to not have the government in the exam room with them. And we know that the Republican Party wants her to have less rights than I did when I was her age. And so for me, enough is enough. Right. Washington isn't working for folks here in Oregon. And in fact, Lori Chavez DeRemer and her Republican friends barely get any work done at all. I called some of my colleagues, former colleagues in Washington today, and they were like, I don't know what I'm in for today, but it's going to be very disenchanting, and that's not what she have a lot of work to look forward to. So when I am elected to be your next Congresswoman, I'll put in the work.
All right, and that is the latest from the Janelle Bynum campaign right there. She is speaking with everybody. She mentioned her children, and that she actually just got off of a plane going to her daughter's graduation.
So Janelle Bynum with a victory speech, not even a half hour after the votes are counted, she'll be taking on Lori Chavez DeRemer, the Republican, in November in District 5. And we just understand in District 3, where all those Democrats were running for that position tonight, Earl Blumenauer has called Maxine Dexter to congratulate her in that race. She had a commanding lead, came in, and is maintaining that lead tonight. So it looks like we already have two Democrats in District 5 and District 3 who will be going on in November to take on their Republican challengers. Todd Unger standing by. Todd, you have a look at some of the state races going on.
That's right, guys. We're getting our first look at results for Multnomah County Commission. 4 seats up for grabs. If a candidate gets 50% of the vote plus one, the seat is theirs. Otherwise, the top two go to a runoff in November. Here's what we're seeing so far in District 1. Let's go ahead and bring up those numbers. A very tight race right here. Vadim Mozersky and Megan Moyer, 43%, 42% respectively. Those are just some early numbers coming in tonight, but they will be the two to track in that race. Let's go to District 2. A lot of eyes on this one as well. Shannon Singleton has the lead with more than 8,000 votes. But check out the race for second place there. Sam Adams and Jesse Burke, both polling at 26% right now, only about 120 votes separating them. That will be one to watch as the night continues. Now to some local, and here's District 3, Julia Brim Edwards. This one likely not going to a runoff. She has a 77% edge. District 4 here, Vince Jones Dixon, narrowly ahead there. It'll be interesting to see if he gets to that 50% threshold. I want to also bring up Clackamas County Commissioner position 1. The chair, Craig Roberts, there, 51% of the votes so far over Tootie Smith, who has been in that role for quite a while. Right now, only 25,000 votes for Roberts. Smith with about 18,000, a lot more votes there to be counted tonight in Clackamas County. And I believe that's what we've got right now. Oh, yes, we have some local tax measures to start with as well. This right here is in Portland. The first is the gas tax. You could see tonight passing overwhelmingly 69%, more than 50,000 votes. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. This is the teacher's levy here for Portland Public Schools. Overwhelmingly, 68% of the vote yes, 32% no. I believe the last one will be the Oregon Zoo Bond. Yes, 50%. Saying yes, no at 46%, so about 15,000 votes separating that tally right now. Then we have the Gresham firefighters officer levy. This passing tonight by about 1,200 votes so far. Still a lot of votes to be counted in that one as well. Then the Tualatin levy. Let's go ahead and bring that up. That is passing overwhelmingly as well, 62% to 38%, about 15,000 votes separating there. So a lot of interest in these local races, and then also with some of those levies like the zoo and gas tax. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Ken for a look at some analysis here.
Well, let's go back to that 5th Congressional District race. We just heard from Janelle Bynum. She's got a big lead. Sounds like she's already claimed victory in that Democratic primary. Jamie McLeod-Skinner really almost defeated Lori Chavez DeRemer. You know, a couple of years ago when they ran against each other. What happened this time with Janelle Bynum in the race?
So here was the key issue for McLeod-Skinner. She has this devoted group of voters in her home base of Deschutes County. In 3 consecutive races, they have stuck with her through thick and thin. Against Kurt Schrader in the primary 2 years ago, she won 71-29. And even though Schrader won in Clackamas County, he could not overcome that kind of a margin. What Janelle Bynum needed to do was to cut into that perennial base of McLeod Skinner, and she did it in overwhelming fashion. I mean, the current numbers I have right now out of Deschutes County, she's winning 8-5 over McLeod Skinner. McLeod Skinner is not even winning her home base.
So Bynum,
and that's game, set, match right there. And then she's tripling Kurt Schrader's performance in Clackamas County. So it's not surprising she would declare victory because there really is no pathway for McLeod Skinner at this point.
Okay, that's probably your phone giving you some more information there. But let's continue to talk about this race. Now Janelle Bynum is turning her attention to Lori Chavez DeRemer. And you could hear in the speech that she gave tonight, she's already targeting that race. So what is she going to have to do in order to make inroads and maybe take this congressional seat back for the Democrats come November?
Yeah, that's going to be the real challenge. As we talked about last Thursday, DeRemer has done a great job of walking that high wire between the Republicans and the Democrats. And so what Janelle Bynum's going to have to do is show that she is going to make the key difference in Congress. This is going to be a seat that's going to decide control of Congress. One of 5 seats probably that will be the decisive manner there. So I think she's going to hit home on that, not only her values that more align closely than, say, current Congresswoman DeRemer, but also that for the nation as a whole, it is critical that she gets that seat. I think that's going to be one of her key messages.
Yeah, Chavez DeRemer has made it a point in all of her public statements of bipartisanship. I mean, this is the most evenly divided district in Oregon, congressional district in Oregon. So you can see why Lori Chavez DeRemer has been walking that fine line between keeping a Republican base, but also satisfying the Democrats that make up a large part of her district.
That's right. That's right. As we mentioned before, you know, there's a lot of squishy Democrats in the heart of Clackamas County that will sometimes vote Republican or Democrat. She's walking that line well, and I think Bynum fits that real well because Bynum is a progressive, but she's a business owner. She runs 4 McDonald's restaurants. She has an engineering degree. She understands business. She was a leader in getting the CHIPS Act passed here in Oregon to bring jobs and investment into Oregon. So she appeals to those traditional Republicans who want investment in business and having Oregon be a place open for business. So I think they both have a good platform to walk that line.
And we are just hearing that it has been officially called for Janelle Bynum. The race has been officially called for
Well, we already
Bynum.
did, you guys, but they can do that now.
Yeah, we knew that. Going off of this race just for a moment, one of the things I noticed when Todd was running down his numbers was that Craig Roberts is really got a nice lead, early numbers, of course, on Clackamas County Chair Tootie Smith.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What I found was interesting about that is that it was 51-38. So there's a lot of undervote or voting for other folks right now, because that's another race that has to be 50+1. So it is first of all, surprising that since Smith is the incumbent chair, is trailing. But it's interesting to see the margin. It wouldn't take a lot for that to change and perhaps even have a runoff for that position. It's a matter of where those votes are coming from. One thing we don't know is whereabouts at this point. I think after we get another vote dump coming in, we'll have a better idea whether that's sustainable for Craig or whether Tootie has an opportunity or whether Mr. Roberts will be becoming the next chair.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Craig Roberts was a former sheriff in Clackamas County. So he does have some political support there and support especially among the law enforcement community in Clackamas County.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, he's a well-known name in Clackamas County. He was there when I was in the Senate. So the voters know him, and they certainly know Tootie Smith as well. This is a case, I think, where a lot of the Democrats were working, even though it's a nonpartisan race. They were making sure to their voters they knew that Craig Roberts was the Democrat in that race. And at least in the early returns showing it may be paying some dividends, especially when we find out what the total turnout was for the Republicans versus the Democrats.
And this is one of those races where things could easily change over the course of the evening as we get more votes in. Jeff and Liz, some interesting developments already.
I want to get back to you guys. Let's talk about District 3, that big race with all the Democrats there. And we understand Earl Blumenauer has already called Maxine Dexter, even though it hasn't been called, to congratulate her. And there was a lot of talk about all the outside money in that race. Rick, Ken, what are your thoughts on that District 3 race with Maxine Dexter looking like she most likely could be the winner of that Democratic race?
Yeah, that was an interesting race and is an interesting race still, because even though it's looking like Maxine Dexter will take it, she's already been called by Earl Blumenauer to give her the race. But there was a lot of talk about the outside money that was coming into this race. Some called it dark money. We knew the sources of quite a bit of that funding that came through. But what did you make about that in terms of how the national interest in this race really drew some cash?
It really did, for a lot of different reasons. And one of the biggest ones is that 3rd district is a perennial seat because it's so solidly blue that whoever wins that seat is going to be a member of that Democratic caucus and ascend over the years for many years to come. And so there's a lot of interest in that. There was a lot of money coming into the race. I thought it was fascinating, and you and I talked about this last week when Shashila Jayapal and Eddie Morales had a news conference to complain about the out-of-state money with no names to the donors buying our election. And we talked about, well, it depends on what side of the cash register you're on. Well, what happens 3 days later? The cash register turns around. Hundreds of thousands of dollars comes in for Shashia Jayapal from a new dark money campaign, and we don't know the donors. I hate to say it, it's politics, and it's politics under Citizens United, where independent groups can do what they want to support or oppose who they want. And we're going to see that in congressional races throughout this country this fall.
Yeah, you are upset if the money goes to your opponent. You're happy if it comes to you.
Exactly.
All right. Let's toss it back over to Liz and Jeff.
Let me get one more question in, Rick and Ken. You know, in this day and age, we know that not everybody watches TV in the traditional sense, but I can say that, you know, here on KOIN 6, we've seen a lot of commercials, campaign ads that ramped up leading up to tonight. And so I want to know what you guys' thoughts on how effective they are. Are they still pretty effective this day and age when not everyone gets maybe their news in the same format? Are they still pretty effective, you think, especially when you see tonight's results?
Yeah, and the other part of that, too, is that the ads, especially for Oregon, were particularly negative this year. There were some pointed ads that really pointed out flaws in the opponent in a pretty vicious way in some cases.
Yeah, that's the national money that comes in. This is what happens in congressional races. We give you a few $100,000. Our team does the ads. And we do, and you do what we tell you to do and participate in the advertisement the way we tell you to do it. That's how it goes. The individual campaign does not have that control. It is interesting, if you really want to take a fine tooth to it and you look at some of those ads where they're paid for by Shashila Jayapal, paid for by Maxine Dexter, you saw a different, more positive ads. All the ones that had the negative were by those outside sources who have their own axe to grind. Not necessarily to the advantage of either of the candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that answer your question, Liz?
Yes, absolutely. I just love this conversation and love that we were able to do this tonight, you know, and get that analysis.
And I thought Janelle Bynum had some extremely effective ads bringing her family, showing her family, talking, and obviously that paid off for her tonight. Hey, Todd, we want to bring you in here. Do you have some final words on some of the local races happening right now?
Yeah, I just think when you're thinking about Multnomah County Commission, certainly District 1, 2, those are very tight, especially when you're talking about second place if they're going to go to a runoff. So we're going to have to track that all night long here.
All right. So the local race is still tight. It is amazing. All these county commissioner races look like they're going to go into runoff, with the exception of an incumbent here or there. Really tight. Yeah.
So things aren't done just yet. Looking ahead to not only November, but tonight, everybody. We have much more coverage tonight at 10 on Portland CW and at 11 p.m. on KOIN 6. Take care. We will see you there.